People are finally excited about the UFC's heavyweight division again, and it's all because of one man. A lack of fresh contenders in the battle for the title of baddest man on the planet had seen fans switch their attention to the lower weight classes, with stars like Conor McGregor dominating the spotlight. But this Saturday, UFC 220 in Boston, Massachusetts will play host to the most highly anticipated heavyweight clash since the days of Brock Lesnar, as the seemingly unstoppable Francis Ngannou challenges dominant champion Stipe Miocic. Francis Ngannou is bidding to win the UFC heavyweight championship at UFC 220. The Cameroonian-born Frenchman challenges Stipe Miocic in Boston on Saturday night. Ngannou has built a reputation as the most feared man in mixed martial arts, a quite incredible feat considering the Cameroonian-born Frenchman was homeless on the streets of Paris just over 4 years ago. Born in the tiny town of Beatty in 1986, Ngannou had a very challenging upbringing, his single mother struggling to support he and his 3 siblings as they were forced to rely on friends for shelter. A youngster who idolized Mike Tyson, Ngannou was teased by the other kids his age as he spoke of his dreams of becoming a professional boxer despite living in an area with no training facilities. Frequently unable to afford the cost of education, Ngannou was forced to start working in a sand quarry at the age of 12, spending long, grueling days shoveling sand into the backs of trucks. His father, who divorced his mother when he was 6, was a renowned street fighter in the region, and Ngannou, gifted with immense size and strength, shared his love for combat. The UFC star says he fights to provide for his mother, left, and the rest of his family. Ngannou poses with the Chief Beatty, the town in which he was born and raised. Naturally, his eye-catching physique saw him approached by various gangs in an attempt to recruit him, but Ngannou refused, choosing instead to use his father's reputation as motivation to do something positive and pursue boxing. Despite reluctance from his family, he left Beatty at the age of 22 for Cameroon's largest city of Douala, where he began to train in the sweet science while working in a clothing factory to make ends meet. After a few years, however, Ngannou realized he could never fulfill his potential in his home country and emigrated to Paris, arriving with no friends, no money and no place to live. The aspiring boxer didn't take long to find his feet, impressing the coaches at the esteemed MMA factory enough that they allowed him to begin training and sleeping there for free in 2013. It was here that Ngannou was convinced to try his hand at mixed martial arts, a sport which offered him an easier way in to make a living. Ngannou hits pads with head coach Fernand Lopez-Onwonib at the MMA factory in Paris. He now lives in Las Vegas and spends most days at the UFC's Performance Institute, despite never having heard of MMA. Ngannou's head coach Fernand Lopez-Onwonib knew straight away that his new pupil had the raw talent necessary. "When you see people training, you can tell," Lopez said, reflecting on Ngannou's early training sessions. "You're not a magician, but you can tell if somebody has the X factor." For MMA, he had what it takes, whilst clearly a natural. The Cameroonian-born Frenchman was reluctant to fully commit to the cage and give up on his lifelong ambition of becoming a boxer. But Lopez, knowing he could go far, booked him his first professional fights to give him a taste of the success he could have and the money that he could make. The plan worked, Ngannou winning 5 of his first 6 fights on France's independent circuit, quickly establishing himself as one of the top prospects in the country. Ngannou's power and athleticism was obvious from the moment he made his UFC debut. The fierce striker quickly made a name for himself as the hottest prospect in the division, but his rise reached a stumbling block as fighters, having learned of his devastating power and finishing ability, began to stop accepting bouts with him. Fortunately, it was at that time that he received the call every fighter dreams of, a first UFC bout soon scheduled against Luis Enrique at UFC on Fox 17. And there began one of the fastest rises in UFC history, as the up-and-comer proved to audiences that not only did he look the part but that he also had the skills to match. Knocking out his Brazilian opponent in the second round, Curtis Blades Bojan Milovic. Anthony Hamilton and Andrei Arlovski went on to fall at hands of the Predator as fans began to sit up and take notice of the new heavyweight contender they had long been waiting for. But doubts remained over whether this much-hyped knockout artist, who had moved to Las Vegas to further his training, really was the future of the division the UFC were promoting him to be. The UFC and President Dana White were quick to promote him as strongly as possible. A win on Saturday can establish him as one of the top stars behind Conor McGregor. Luckily for Ngannou, the chance to dispel those doubts soon came as he was booked to take on the decorated veteran Dutch striker Alistair Overeem in an 0-1 contender bout at UFC 218 in December. And dispel them he did, producing one of the most terrifying one-punch knockouts in UFC history as he sent the former Strikeforce champion flying to the mat with a viscous uppercut in the second minute. The stunning victory has granted the 31-year-old an almost mythical status among both fighters and fans, his name becoming the standard answer when it comes to the question of who you would not like to wind up in an octagon with. But one hurdle still remains in his journey to the top, and it is undoubtedly the biggest one. Ngannou shocked the world with his terrifying knockout of Alistair Overeem at UFC 218. The 31-year-old is one win away from completing his journey to heavyweight gold. Champion Miocic is riding a win streak just as impressive as a challenger and finds himself one scalp away from breaking the record for most heavyweight title defenses. He comes into this one as a slight underdog, largely due to the push given to Ngannou. But those in the know point to his superior experience and more well-rounded skill set. Ngannou has the power to knock out anyone on the planet. Whether he has the all-round game and stamina to go 5 championship rounds remains to be seen. One thing is for certain: a win on Saturday night will crown him the next big thing.